Hi there, and welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where father and son sit down and talk about fantasy books. I'm the son of that equation, Zach.
That makes me the father, Jim. Glad to have you here with us today as we return to a style of episode that we have not done in months.
It's
More
been a
about
little
that in
bit.
a moment. Yeah. Zach, how you doing this fine Sunday afternoon or almost evening for you?
I'm okay. I'm a bit sleepy. I got in a little late last night, and then Rolly said it was time to wake up pretty early, so I decided I needed a little nap today, um, since I had the time. So I've been up again for, I don't know, 20 minutes. I'm still waking up. It's nice to be able to do that on occasion. How you
We
doing, Dad?
appreciate you waking up to come and hang with us, and particularly me. Thank you.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
doing fine. It's a nice Sunday afternoon here. Like I said, a pleasant day in the 80s. I've got nothing to do but do some podcasting stuff today and wash clothes. And the clothes washing's done. So, booyah. And no big plans the rest of the day other than to drink soda. Because I'm
Mm,
successfully still dropping weight by not drinking as much booze. I'm down
nice.
7 pounds now. So, cha-ching, you just got to keep it going. So, just a nice Diet Coke for me today. How about you?
Well, it's a strangely sober day for us then, because
Oh, no.
I'm not drinking this episode. That's okay.
All right. And there we are. Public service announcement to all of you who we've corrupted for over 200 episodes. It's okay not to drink once in a while. They're like liars. No. Let's see. What we are here to do today, then, because I don't have any notes, I just want to jump into the content this time. Unless you have any notes. Do you have any notes?
I was gonna mention that last time, I don't remember if it was on or off episode, you asked me about Malazan when I was gonna start reading those. I now
Yes.
have all the books.
Did you take advantage of that
I, I
humble
did.
thing?
I did.
Offers? Yep, I got all the ones I didn't have yet as well. So
So they're all on my phone now. And I'll get to reading them sooner than I thought I was going to.
nice. The Kindle, I went and double checked. Full price here in the US, $10 per book on Kindle. Saved a lot of money while also supporting a charity through Humble. What's the rest of the name of that site?
You know what? It's a good
I want to
question.
plug the site. I want to
I
plug
don't
it
know
because
my head, so please find it.
I'm there we go.
Please.
Humble Bundle. It was a Humble Bundle. That's their website, humblebundle.com. You can get books. They're not, brand new books. They're books that have been out a little while, but you can get books at significantly discounted rates, as well as video games, mostly for PCs. So there you go, Zach. They have some Mac titles, but mostly they're for PC, like most games are. And again, they're all significantly discounted, and you can get them at this price, and a portion of your price is going to a charity. And you can donate more. If you think about it, okay, this is the real price. You're only paying this. You could go a little bit higher and support the charity a little more. You don't have to, but what does your heart lead you to? So that's how that works. They've supported millions and millions and millions of dollars worth to a considerable number of charities over the years. I was happy to support that and get the rest of my Malazan books. Check out humblebundle.com. Now I should maybe
Anyway,
make sure I put that in the show notes. So
yeah,
you have your
probably.
Malazan, and you said you're going to read it sooner rather than later. What does
Well,
that mean?
it just means sooner than I was going to. It was going to be like I'll get to it. I'll get around to buying them, and then I'll do it. And so it was like, it's on my TBR, but it's probably like 30, 40, 50 books down. Now it's like 10 to 15
Now
probably.
that it's
So,
filling space on your phone, might as well just read it. Yeah.
well, it's easier to read the 10 books I've got than go buy a bunch of other books that I don't have yet and then read.
I
I
like
still
that.
might go
That's
buy
true.
a bunch of other books and read them, but I might do this first.
Okay. Well, I think you'll like them. I really do. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts on those too. All right. What we are here today is not to talk about Malazan, though, or any other books that we might be reading. We're here to talk about books we've already read, and this is one of our to read or not to read episodes. So, Zach and I, in a spoiler-lite format, are here to give you our thoughts on the First Law Trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. This is, as all of these types of episodes are, highly subjective. We are not brilliant experts. We are just fans and readers, and we're going to give our opinions about these books, but we respect your opinions. You may not agree with us, and that's all right. But we run the show, so we get to decide what this show says. We will, however, with our opinions, give our reasoning. We're not just throwing stuff out there to get ratings. We will give legit explanations for why we feel the way we feel. You still might not
Well,
agree with us, but we'll try to explain.
we'll give explanations. You can decide whether or not you think they're legit.
All right. And so, as I said, spoiler-lite, we are not revealing the plots of these stories. We are talking about the stories. We'll mention some characters, some general things about the books, really light, not deep at all. So if you haven't read them, you're perfectly safe to be here. And if you have read them, you'll understand what we're talking about. And we'd love to hear if you agree with us. Let me give just the facts very briefly about this trilogy. These are 3 grimdark fantasy novels, and they kick off a series that now stretches through 9 novels and 1 short story collection. We're here today only to talk about the First Law Trilogy. That's the term for the first 3 books. Now, all of the books have collectively come to be referred to as First Law, or the First Law series. But
This
we're
is one
just
of those
talking
where
about...
I've been upset and on the record being like, okay, why are we calling it a trilogy when there's so many books, but it's all the same it's all called the same thing. So it's both the trilogy and the series. That's dumb.
Slightly confusing. I'm going to explain it just a little bit more here in these opening notes. But these books we're focused on are The Blade itself, which came out in 2006, Before They Are Hanged in 2007, and the finish of the trilogy, Last Argument of Kings in 2008. And they are one complete story arc, even though each one does have a distinct arc of its own. This epic fantasy trilogy is focused on a world that is in conflict, with various world powers vying for dominance, while there are subtle forces working in the background as manipulators of circumstance. The setting is similar to early Renaissance era Europe. Some of the things you see remind me of like Northern Europe and then maybe the Mediterranean, that kind of setting, pre-industrial revolution, but like they're almost there. It's kind of where I'd place it. Magic does play a significant, though somewhat mysterious, role in this tale. The focus of the books is on the experiences of various core characters rather than one set group or person, with various story arcs that are diverse in settings and happenings, yet they are interconnected in some ways that you come to understand. Abercrombie found solid success with both critics and fans for these 3 books, finding a way to work with fantasy settings that were familiar to many fantasy readers while upsetting expectations with his dark grittiness and plot occurrences. And he's not particularly kind to his characters. Mind you, for many of them, they deserve everything they get.
Yeah, the characters themselves aren't particularly kind.
Right. Thanks to the commercial success of the trilogy, Abercrombie went right on to write 3 standalone First Law novels. So they're in the same world, but they aren't telling another trilogy. No, they're just 3 standalone novels over the following 4 years. And then he took a 7-year break before he came out with right now is the final trilogy, the Age of Madness trilogy. It's still the First Law series, but it does have a separate name, Age of Madness. Those came out in 2019, 2020, and 2021. I have not read anything beyond the original trilogy, and Zach, the same is true for you at this point, right?
For the moment, that is correct.
So y'all can be comfortable knowing that's all we're talking about today. All right, personal experiences with the series. Why don't you tell us about you first, Zach?
It's been the first one, at least, has been sitting on my shelf for like couple years. This one was one that sat on my shelf for like a year and a half before I got around to it, just because I got it. I was interested. I'd heard about it from other people, from you, from other creators, as well as just Joe Abercrombie. And
Lord Grimdark.
like being a relatively household name in grimdark stuff nowadays. And as I started doing more and more grimdark, I was like, I kind of like this stuff. It's not always what I want to read, but it's something I can enjoy.
I'm glad it's not always what you want to read. I'd worry about you.
Let's go read what's the prototypical grimdark fantasy. And I read the first and then went, that's really good. And so I read the second and I read the third. And I did it in my weird way where there were other books in between.
You did intersperse things. Okay.
I did.
I was wondering.
I did. Just because that's how I was doing my TBR at the time. And so there were Dresden Files books between these. And generally speaking, at least the books that I was reading of Dresden versus the books here, I was enjoying my time going through this arc more.
Maybe that's what poisoned you to Jim Butcher and the Dresden Files. It wasn't dark enough.
I don't know. But that's more or less me. I finished it all not too long ago and said, yeah, I liked it. I'm going to read what's next. It probably was going to be read before Malazan. Now that might not be true.
My experience, I read these back in the middle of 2021, actually the first half of the year. I actually looked at my Goodreads schedule of, all the things I've read so I can place this. I started The Blade itself April 14th, 2021. And 6 weeks later, I was done with all three of them. I just went about 2 weeks for each book, just went straight through. It was very easy for me to not stop reading. I did them on Kindle. I have no idea what the audiobook would sound like. I don't even know if there is an audiobook. There probably is. Could be kind of cool, but I did not listen to these. I just read them. I found them in the first place, similarly to you, by hearing about them from other content creators. I think the guys at Fantology were the first ones where I was listening to their content, and I came upon these, and they were raving about them. And I didn't listen to the episodes because I hadn't read the books yet. I hate spoilers of any kind. I don't even want to know a little bit about it. So I wouldn't be listening to my own episodes like this if I haven't read the book. But on other episodes, they're referencing these books and that they were so good. So, okay. I think that's how they got on my list. These were my first grimdark novels after A Song of Ice and Fire, which I had read many years earlier. And they certainly encouraged me to keep reading more grimdark because I loved them, despite how freaking grimdarky they are at times. I love these books. So that's my personal experience. Let's talk about the strengths as we think of these books then, these three. And let's kind of go back and forth and see. So I'll toss it to you first. What's a strength?
The characters. They have depth. They have a realism to them. They are nuanced in their perspectives. They're not all just one. Each character that has a name, has a purpose, has a role in the story, feels like it actually belongs, has a name, and it has a role and purpose in the story. And it's not just, it's the carbon copy of this kind of character, or we've got this group of Northmen, and this Northman and this Northman are the same. It's like, no, they have their own nuances to them. And we get to know them well.
I like that. I actually have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 strengths I came up with as I thought about these. And the first 3 are all about the characters. I'm still going to say them, even though there's going to be some overlap with what you just said, because I completely agree with you. The first one I said was the compelling characters. And compelling in such a manner that you get sucked into their experiences. You see things with great clarity through the various characters' POVs. That's how it's written, which means you're also getting unreliable narrator. You only know what they know. And there are many surprises along the way as they discover things they didn't know, and getting kind of to live out those experiences with those characters, I found a really compelling storytelling technique. What's another one you got?
I found the prose to be quite enjoyable and engaging. Not necessarily like the highest brow prose or whatever. I'm not qualified to make that judgment even. What I can say is it felt like there were intentional choices made in how the story was delivered that I thought were very effective. Um, how a certain grim and visceral scene gets described, or how something else gets highlighted in a more beautiful manner. I thought the prose was effective.
All right, where you said your thing about characters, and I have three things to say. I agree with you on this one too, but I went the opposite way, and all I said was the writing is brilliant. It's really well done. So you elaborated, and that was beautiful. So let me instead finish my elaboration on what I liked about the characters. Um, the second thing with characters is that Logan Ninefingers is amazing. Definitely my favorite character in the trilogy.
Mm.
But right there with him is Sandan Glokta,
Mm.
an inquisitor who pretty much has perfected the art of torture, and yet he's written so that he's a sympathetic character. You know, that's not easy to do. So that goes back to the brilliant writing as well. Love the characters in the show, in the trilogy. But then to speak about the characters one more time, and this overlaps to something else, a strength of the series is the grayness of it. The gray, morally gray characters and gray circumstances. There's no person, no cause that is fully righteous and just in these books, nor does anything appear to be totally evil. Though I might say some lean a little more that direction.
And some of it
Nothing is
definitely
100%.
appears that way, only to be later revealed that maybe it's not.
Right, right. So that's a strength. Okay, what's another that you have?
No, I will go along with that to say that there's a certain level of complexity to the narrative that is enjoyable as an adult reader. This is not something that I think is at all pandering to a younger audience. It's like, no, it expects your
No.
reader to be able to follow and be an intelligent reader while not forcing them to be reading this for the sake of a textbook. You don't have to study this to understand it, but it does engage you intellectually as well.
Along those lines, don't hand this book to your middle schooler, okay? Just
For a
don't.
number of reasons, don't do it.
You might report it. Don't.
Yeah, no.
And if you are a middle schooler watching this right now, I'm telling you, don't read this yet. Now they're going to go read it. But
Look,
don't.
I'm telling you, he's going to say wait till you're an adult. I'm going to say wait until you're in high school.
Another strength I'll say is the plot is unpredictable. It's not going certain directions that you can totally see coming along the way. There are some real twists. There are some things that, yeah, wow. I mean, you can probably discern some more things on a reread, but it definitely kept you guessing where this thing was going.
Yeah, there definitely are some things that to predict it. There were times I predicted it, but only because I was like, nah, all the evidence is pointing here. I don't buy it. Not for any reason in the writing. I just think there's too much evidence supporting this. I don't buy it.
Okay. I have two more strengths. Do you have any others that you want to list?
You go first.
All right. Well, the action sequences. They're intense. Abercrombie writes some of these battle scenes, some of these wild and crazy moments with fighting or magic just really well. They're like, whoa. I enjoyed the rush of the action sequences.
I wanted to highlight, because I did in the little short takes, the Tiny Talks, book blasts that I did
which are not out yet for these, but they're coming.
Are they not out at the time that this gets released?
Oh, probably then. Yeah. So yeah. So never mind.
Uh,
Ignore what I just said. Go look for the Book Blast
but if you
episodes on
didn't
First
go
Law
watch
Trilogy.
those, a quick little highlight. I love the naming of these books, whether they have an in-world reasoning or an in-our-world reasoning to them. They're very thought out and clever while fitting the story itself, and I think it's beautifully done.
Good one. The last strength I enjoy is just a common strength of most grimdark. No one is safe. You don't know who's gonna make it and who's gonna die. And there are people who die. There are a lot of people who die in this story.
A number of people die, a
Yeah.
couple.
Those are my strengths. Do you have anything else?
I'm ready to go to weaknesses.
All right. I have, well, let me throw out my first weakness. The
Mhm.
magic, perhaps. Simply because it isn't all that well defined. It's pretty soft magic. But
It
really,
is
I'm reaching on that. I don't dislike the magic. I'm just like, I couldn't come up with weaknesses. That was the only real thing. I got nothing else.
to talk about the magic. I think this is an example of soft magic done well, in that uh, it is soft magic, uh, but more in that it's not explained super well, or at least we don't see anyone as our main character go through the process of learning it well. Um, Anyone we see really doing magic already knows how to do magic, and it's only talked about in the grand theory.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think it's effective for the story. Uh, so it would get an interesting score on our rated magic system for reasons. One weakness I do want to highlight for this, for me, women. Um, Notably, there are 4 named female characters that I can think of, maybe 5, uh, compared to the like 30 plus male characters. Now, some of that is going to be the world itself. I also look at it and go, those 5, 1 or 2 of them I think are deep and complex and good characters, like a bunch of the other main characters we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So it's disproportional. There are a couple very well written, very engaging, interesting female characters. Uh, it doesn't feel as balanced as I might want,
Oh,
and
okay.
so I just feel like there's a little bit lacking there.
That's probably a good one. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't bother me, but it would bother some people. Yeah. Uh, Another weakness I could mention isn't truly a weakness, but it could cause you to not like the story, and that is it is very grimdark.
Yep.
So if that's not what you enjoy, you're going to find a lot of stuff that you can't stand in these books. So be aware. Full on grimdark.
There needs
So
to be
it's not really a weakness.
a very big warning on these books that isn't necessarily on them if you see them in a bookstore. That is to say, hey, this is a bloody, violent, horny, terrifying book. It's great, but keep in mind,
Yeah.
it's not for everyone, and that's
Right.
okay.
It's
And even if it is
unapologetically what it
for
is.
you, it maybe shouldn't be for you until you reach a certain age. That is an indeterminate age based upon the individual rather than any blanket statement I can make.
Nice disclaimer. Well done. Any other weakness? I got nothing else. Do you want to say anything else?
I really highlighted the big thing for me.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, well thought. Yeah. Would you ever read this trilogy again?
No. I'll read more in the world. I don't feel the need to reread the series.
I got the same answer. I just said not likely, but nothing against these books. I just have so much else to read. But I definitely will be reading the rest of the series as you are. It's in my TBR high enough that I'll probably read it next year. Yeah. All right, rating scale 1 to 100. How do you subjectively feel this series rates in comparison to all the other fantasy fiction you've read?
Mine's going to be higher than yours.
We'll see.
Okay.
He's thinking right now. My number is already typed in my notes, so
I
we'll
think I've
find
got
out.
my number. I think I've got my
Okay.
number.
What do you give?
92.
That's strong. But I gave it a 90, so I'm right there with you.
Yeah. I figured I would be higher. I didn't think I would be that much higher. Because it's a good thing. It's worthy. I think I like the style a little bit more than you do.
Okay. And, I think this is one that I think better about the longer it gets from having read it. I enjoyed them. Some of it is really gritty and even gross at times, some of the content. But the farther I get from that, the less I remember those things. And I just remember how great the story was and how much I enjoyed the characters. If I had felt enough of, oh my goodness, this is so incredible, let me say it this way. If when I finished it, I was feeling it was a 90, I probably would have moved on to the other books. But I haven't yet. They're still waiting 2 years later on my TBR. So I think I feel stronger about it now than I did right after I finished it.
The gross, gritty darkness of these books really are a strong aspect, but they are the setting. They are not why this series is a 92. This series is a 92 because of the characters, because of the story, because of the way it uses that setting. It is a very good example on how to write a trilogy. Period.
Okay. That works for me. Final question for any of these to read or not to read is to answer the question, what sort of person do we think might enjoy this series?
They need to be someone that I think has interest, has already shown interest, or might potentially be interested in grimdark as a genre. If they are not in any way, shape, or form interested in that as a genre, if that is not something they enjoy consuming in their movies, if they're not a horror fan or suspense or something along those lines, if they're like, nah, I get squeamish when someone gets a paper cut, I'm not recommending this book.
My thoughts on it, a person who is a fantasy reader and is kind of getting tired and bored of traditional fantasy and thinks they are ready for something darker, grittier, this would be something to try. But you definitely have to be comfortable with mature content. This is not for the kiddos.
If you're open to the idea of grimdark, even if you haven't read any yet, but you are open to the idea of it, and you like fantasy in general, start here. This is a great place to start trying grimdark.
It launched me into a whole bunch more grimdark books. Yeah. And I'm not sure the ones I moved on to necessarily were better than this. This is really top stuff. And, I didn't go on to a bunch of garbage. I mean, I've been reading John Gwynne and Mark Lawrence. I mean, good grimdark authors. But this stuff, this is good.
Ooh, as a fun side note, if you've read A Song of Ice and Fire and you are upset that you're not going to get the rest of that series, come read this series. It's good enough it might make you forget about the fact that you're not getting the other books in that series.
And there's 9 of them you can read instead of only 5. All right, good enough. I think that was a great short little episode. I mean, we hit about 30 minutes here. Yeah, I think we've said enough. People ought to know now whether they want to give it a try. And again, if you are one of those people that, of course, have already enjoyed this series or read it and hated it, either way, and you want to give us your thoughts, we'd love to hear them. So just down below there, look down, you can see the comment box. Put your comments in. Now, while you're looking for the comment box, you'll also see this thumb. Click that, because that means you cared enough about the episode that you probably ought to like it. Help us out. Like the episode. And if you're not a subscriber already, that's right next to the like button. We'd love to have you join our Fantasy for the Ages crowd, as Zach and I just keep bringing content for you. So with all those things mentioned, this is a great time to run the outro. with all the
mentions that
visual
things.
reminders.
And more about how to connect with us on social medias or come join the conversation with us and other people who listen or are involved in the community on Discord, or even give us some support, help us make this possible to continue through Patreon. We'd love
We
to.
love our Patreon supporters. Thank you. Yep,
Sorry, I was faster than the credits rolling.
it's all good. We can actually wrap this up the right way this time. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll talk to you next time.